In the heyday of the arcade experience, among the Street Fighters, Double Dragons, and NBA Jams, there was a run-and-gun shooter series from SNK, one of the biggest arcade names at the time, thanks to the Neo Geo machines that they produced. At first glance, it wasn't different than any other shooter like, say, Contra for instance. But there was one thing that made this game unique beside its comical art style, and that was, you could drive a friggin' tank. That game was Metal Slug, the story of a small team of skilled soldiers going up against an evil army bent on taking over the world. With the aid of the titular tanks, of course. Metal Slug became an instant success due in part to its fun gameplay and aforementioned visuals. Over the years, there have been numerous sequels for the little tank that could, with ports on many consoles and handhelds. Which brings me to today's episode. During the Big Green's run, 3 games from the franchise made their way to original Xbox, Metal Slugs 3, 4, and 5. And thanks to our good friend Stefan, we're going to take a look at these arcade classics brought home to see if these Big Green ports are still worth playing today. Now, I'm going to be honest with you all. I knew that the Metal Slug games had a bit of a story, but it wasn't something I actively searched for. I was there to run and gun. However, for the interest of the episode today, I'll run through what I found while researching the Big Green versions of these games, starting with Part 3. Essentially, the team of characters you play as, known as the Peregrine Falcon Strike Force, have taken on and thwarted the evil schemes of General Morden and his army twice so far. Years have passed since the second Metal Slug, and Morden is declared missing by his fellow survivors. With said knowledge, the team of Marco, Tarma, Eri, and Fio set off to wipe out his remaining forces for good. However, there's something even more sinister waiting for them. I'm pretty sure that not many people play Metal Slug for its captivating story. They're just there for a fun arcade shooter. So it can be forgiven that Metal Slug 3, the whole series really, doesn't focus on plot. Still, what's here is pretty good. Continuing the proud tradition of the previous 2 titles, Metal Slug 3 has you choosing your hero and blasting your way through each stage to reach the boss of said level and take them out in order to proceed. You start off with a pistol with unlimited ammo and a knife for melee, but there's a variety of limited ammo weapons you can obtain by freeing POWs scattered throughout the stage, like heavy machine guns, flame shots, and the rocket launcher, as well as grenades to throw. Not to be left out, there's also the infamous Metal Slugs you can pilot, each having their own set of weapons and can take a certain amount of damage before they explode. There's also different transformations that the player can obtain that have certain abilities. The Mummy and Fat forms make a return from Part 2, along with scuba gear, a jetpack, and the infamous zombie form. While a member of the Undead, regular enemies can't hurt you, and you have access to a Mega Giga Blood Death Beam in place of grenades. The downside is you move slow, you can't jump, and zombies can kill you. You can reverse the zombification with medicine dropped on the ground if you wish though. A new feature that started with 3 is branching paths during stages. You'll come across parts with forks in the road leading to different sections that may net you weapons or POWs to save, though each path will still lead to the boss. So far so good, though there's one big flaw that really killed this version of the game for me. Now, there's no denying that Metal Slug 3 is a tough arcade game to beat. Even on easy, it can be a challenge. But the positive of being a home port of an arcade shooter is that you can continue where you die, even if you have a limited amount of continues. However, the Xbox version of Part 3 does something so baffling that it spikes the difficulty in ways that it shouldn't. When you lose your lives and continue, it starts you back at the beginning of the stage. Now, as far as I'm aware, no other version of Metal Slug 3 does this, mostly due to them being straight-up arcade ports. But this is just stupid. I'm sorry. I'm all for a challenging game, and I have beaten Metal Slug 3 with limited continues before on regular difficulty. But this is artificially making the game tougher for no reason. If you can manage to beat the game, there's 2 console-exclusive minigames to partake in. Storming the UFO mothership lets you play as a member of Morden's soldiers as you try to rescue your fellow men against the alien hordes, and Fat Island, where you and another player compete and eat your way to gaining the most weight possible. I would tell you that these are pretty interesting, but unfortunately, again, due to that continue problem, I wasn't able to beat this game. I got to maybe stage 3 or 4 before I lost all my lives and continues, and it forced me back to stage 1, so unfortunately I just gave up. But if you have beat this game and have played these minigames, please let me know in the comments how they are, and if they're even worth beating this game to unlock them. Visually, Metal Slug 3 looks pretty damn good. About arcade perfect, actually, with smooth character animations and nice detailed stage backgrounds. While with audio, the music is an awesome soundtrack that's a mix of rocking tunes and epic tracks fitting of the series. As for voiceover, well... Rocket Launcher! Need I say more? Metal Slug 3 is a fantastic game to play and is actually the one I started with in the series, thus being one of my favorites. However, with so many ways to play this game nowadays, it's hard to recommend the big green version, mostly due to the horrible continue mechanic. I mean, why play a game with artificial difficulty when you can go play an arcade port that lets you continue right where you died? Like I said, it's hard to recommend. Unless you're into that kind of tough challenge, then by all means, go for it. Moving right along, Metal Slug 4 also made an appearance on the Big Green about a year later, as well as Part 5, as they were bundled together in one package. A year after Part 3, a new threat known as the Amadeus Syndicate has joined forces with General Morden's army to terrorize the world with a computer virus that can wipe out the military computer systems of any nation, and it's up to Marco, Theo, and newcomers Nadia and Trevor to take on this new crisis. While in Metal Slug 5, a year after Metal Slug 7, yeah, I forgot to mention that the timeline for this series is all over the place. Anyway, the OG team must stop an evil cult called the Ptolemaic Army from taking over the world with the aid of a giant demon god. Again, it's enough story to get you up and gunning, and really, that's all you need. Just like most sequels to run-and-gun shooters, the gameplay is still intact, with some new features added to keep it fresh. In Part 4, there's new slugs to pilot, a new weapon in the form of the two-handed heavy machine gun, and you can now be turned into a monkey. That's kinda neat. While in Part 5, you can perform a slide dash, have again a few new slugs to ride, and some things have been omitted, like the old different forms, save for getting fat and less branching paths. Other than that, it's business as usual. The continue problem for Metal Slug 3 has been fixed here for both 4 and 5 in the fact that you now continue where you last perished instead of restarting the stage again. This time you're also given infinite continues as well. I have to admit, even though at first I was overjoyed to be able to play through the game and not worry about restarting so many times, I have to say being on what's essentially free played mode right off the bat kinda took the oomph out of the game. It would have been better if infinite continues were an option to toggle on and off, like it is in the later collection Metal Slug Anthology. Still, it's a fun ROM to have for a half hour, though there's no unlockables around to work for. The same goes for 5 as well. I mean, all you can do is look at the scores you've beaten to see where you rank at the... Wait a minute. Does that say cow ass? Cow, what the... Visually, both 4 and 5 look fantastic, although 4 does use a ton of sprites from the last 3 games, something I heard that was a complaint back in the day. Still, the character animations and stage backgrounds are top-notch. For audio, it's a case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, with, again, awesome rock tunes for both games and the same goofy voices. At the end of the day, these 3 games are nice ports of the arcade classics. However, unless you're collecting for the Big Green, there's easier ways to play them. 3, 4, and 5 is available on all digital stores like Steam, PlayStation Network, and the Xbox Store, as well as the aforementioned Metal Slug Anthology that contains 1 through 6 and X, a director's cut of Part 2. And even though I still can't recommend the Xbox port of 3 to casual players because of that whole stage continue thing, I can say it's worth it for those who are hardcore Metal Slug players looking for some extra challenge. However you play it though, you can't go wrong with Metal Slug for some classic arcade run and gun action. Metal Slug continued to be relevant in gaming with a 7th entry released on the DS and PSP, as some of the heroes making their way into SNK's King of Fighters series. And while there haven't been any new games in a while, we still have plenty of adventures to enjoy with the Peregrine Falcon Squad. And as always, this is the Dali Popka saying, stay green my friends. I'll see you next time. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode and want more of me and the Big Green, then click that subscribe button and the bell to get notified when new content arrives. I want to say a special thank you to my patrons for helping not just the channel grow, but me as a creator. You have my forever thanks. If you're interested in the channel and would like to help it grow further, consider becoming a patron today. For the cost of a soda or an item on the dollar menu, you can help myself and the channel provide the best source of Big Green programming and more. Once again, all the thanks and love.